basics of making a box, where I showed how to hollow it out and make a pop lid, and so we covered a lot of things. Let me grab that box that we made last week. Here we go. We've got a nice form on this one. It is pretty easy. We did that nice detail on the bottom here. It's swirls, hollowed out the top, the inside, made a little tenon for the lid, created an insert. Everybody wanted the burl, or majority of people wanted the burls on the insert, so that's what we went with. But today we're going to talk about design. There are a lot of different ways you can design a box. Let's take this one for example. This has got palm in the top of it. This is an insert, and it's just a very nice, round, easy to make box. See if we can match up the grain. There we go. We got a really nice grain match there. And I had a few things in there. That's what the color's from. And it fits pretty good. I made this in 2014, I believe that was. So it's holding up really, really nice. Just a small detail, a couple grooves on the bottom, just to show everybody that we are paying attention to the bottom, not just ignoring it as a holding spot there. And just because it's round, it gives it a classic, nice look to it. Especially the grain pattern here. Sitting on a executive's desk or something, that would be perfect for that. It doesn't need a lot of design or doodads or finials or anything on a box like this. It's just really a simple, nice design. Just round. As basic as you can get. It's the insert that sets it off with that kind of a palm. But you can use all kinds of different inserts, different grain patterns and everything just to set it off. And then we can get into the more ornate. It's what I call a twisted box. You can see it's got a nice twist in it. That's done by doing offset turning. I'm not sure how many of you have experienced all that. I'm doing the offset by creating the three anchor points on both ends there, and just turning parts of it away. Really, it doesn't take much turning to get this down to that. Once you learn the details of it, it's pretty basic. Then I created a lid, a dark wood lid, and I put some texturing on there with some gold wax in there, very small finial. And this is what's called an inset lid. You can see it doesn't have a tenon for the lid to slide over. It actually sits down inside of the box. So we're going to make something similar to this today. I'll probably just make it three-sided instead of a twist. But the three-sided ones are pretty fun to do too. It's offset turning also. You got little boxes. And the tenon does fit down inside there. I call these my little finger pots. But they're just little boxes. This one's almost done. You see, I burned the outside, and then I added some color wax too. I still need to do the lid. Because it's got a tenon on it, I can actually chuck this back up into my pin jaws and finish that off the same way I did the bottom. When I get into design, how do we figure out a good design? It's pretty much in thirds. Everything is in thirds. So that's what you draw your eyes to. You can go through the golden mean, which is just off of a 1/3. But 1/3 is easier to divide up when it comes to measurements and things. So I'm going to clean up the top of this real quick. This blank. A spindle gouge here. Let's see what we got here. Oh, that is zoomed way too far in. There we go. I must have bumped that camera earlier. So I'm just going to clean up the top here with a spindle gouge real quick. This 45 degrees. Well, I'm going to go in when I start to cut at 90 degrees or 3 o'clock so it doesn't escape back on me until you get that little lip going. You can turn it to 45. And this will make a nice, cleaner cut than a parting tool will. Parting tools, when you part them off, it leaves a lot of tear out. And this is good practice. You can see that cleaned it up a lot more. So what I want to do is I'm just going to start creating. That's the big thing is when it comes to designing boxes, it's open season for whatever you want to do. So the first thing, I'm not going to spend a lot of time hollowing or anything today for these samples. We'll get to that in a little while because we covered that last week. We just want to create shapes. So what I want to do is I'm going to grab my parting tool and decide where I want the lid. And first I'm going to grab my this is my golden mean caliper. And it's not necessary to do it this way, but this actually gives you a nicer, pleasing look when the piece is done. So if you can come close to this, your eye will gravitate to it if it's sitting on a shelf. If you sell your work, then that's a really good way of grabbing people's attention. So I'm just gonna cut a groove there, right there, just so I know where the top is. My parting tool. Then I want to play around with the lid first. What kind of shape would I like to have the lid? So I'm going to make a nice coved up to a point on this lid. So I got my tool going in at 90 degrees so it doesn't escape, and then I turn it to 45. And then I use my body to move it forward. And I'm just creating a straight cut at this point, and then we'll come up to the cove when we're ready. We're just wasting away a lot of wood. So we can get down to where we want to make the details of this box or this design. Let me step away for a second here. Sorry, I had something in my throat there. Okay, I want to bring my tool rest a little closer because the overhang was getting a little too much. And you can see the cove taking place. Let me switch cameras here. There we go. You guys got a better view of what the shape is looking like. So just a 90 degrees to start the cut and turn it 45. You lower my tool rest a little bit. It feels like it's trying to fight me, so I want to get rid of that. There. Wow, this has already dulled my tool by the feel of it there. All right, so I'm going to run over to the grinder real quick. I'm just using a Vera grind. I believe I showed this last week. It's made by One Way. When I bought my grinder, I spent a couple of weeks trying to sharpen freehand, and I was like, nope, this ain't working. And I recently got these CBN wheels also. I'm just getting the dust off of here. I don't want any residue getting into the grinding wheels. So you want, especially if you're using CBN wheels, you want to make sure you don't leave any wood residue from your tool into the wheel itself. It's not the best for it. I need to back that up. Make sure there's no light showing through it. Yep, we're on there. It's always good to check the bevel and make sure it's sharpening where you want it to. Yeah, I need to bring it up, the holder out just a little bit. Yep, there we go. And we're just going to do the 2 sweeps. And then the nose. And we're just going to check that, make sure that you don't have any dips in that side, swept back part. You want it straight or slightly convex, not concave on the air. All right. This should be cutting a lot better now. Oh, yeah, it's cutting much better. I'm sure you guys can tell just by watching that cut how easy that went through. And so now we're just going to do a finishing cut. I'm just going to do a shear cut back towards me. See how except for that point, I need to fix that going the other way. All right, took care of all those tool marks, so now I just need to kind of mess that up with that shear cut there. Now we don't want a really sharp point because they just break off. So you want to make it a little dull on the top there. So you just got a nice little lid going there. So it's, I'm going to move my headstock over so I'm more in the center of the camera. Yeah, there we go. That's better. Knew something was off when I was looking at that. So we got that lid, which is pretty nice. Now I want to do is just want to shape the bottom here. And I think a nice round, starting from here and working narrower here and then working, getting a little bit bigger, but still a round shape. You know, kind of a curve shape to it. So I'm just going to start right here in the middle, or right here, about, I don't know why I start in the middle, that'd be too much of a cut. About 1/3 towards the middle. Start at 45 with the tool at 45 degrees. And we just kind of ease it back a little bit again. Now this part looks a little big, but we can take that down. Same thing here, about a third towards the middle. We'll start that cut. Whoop. Just be careful with that last cut because it can grab and using my body to create this curve. Okay, so now I'm at the jaw, so I can't really go anymore unless I do this. I can create a relief cut right here. Just going to allow me to make that curve a little bit deeper in there. I still need to take off a lot more of waste wood, so I want to just get rid of this, go back and forth a little bit, and then we'll start on that curve again. I'm starting at pretty much 12 o'clock, and as I make that curve using my body, I also twist the tool, and by the end of the cut, I'm about 90 or 9 o'clock or 90 degrees. So I'm going to do this on the same way, but opposite direction. And we can just do some cleanup cuts here to make it look nice. Doesn't have to be gorgeous. So there's a flat right there I want to get rid of, so I'm going to get rid of that. So I'm going to measure this. See how close I came with the thirds here, because I want this to be the highest point on this a third of the way up. I'm at 2 inches. I would be 1/3 or 2/3 up. Right there. About right. It's about where I want it to be. You see how far off that was just a little bit, but I was just eyeballing it there. So where that line is should be the high point of that curve. So I just want to start there and start. You can see how it's still kind of flat. Okay, so I'm going to take some of this down. Nice and easy. It's starting to get in the way, and it's too big for a box like this anyway. And there's another design right there. As you can see, it's the shape of the gouge. Created like a little concave there. It's hard for you guys to see that, I think. Yeah, you can see it a little bit. I'll try to remember to keep brushing that off so you guys can get a better look at that. So I'm going to start back here, about in the middle here. I can see where it's flat and then it curves in again. So I want to start where that flat begins. And do that same kind of cut. And then we can come up a little further. And one more time, a little closer to the lid. And you see that form showing up. And then we can just clean this up a little bit here, coming off there. And a little bit more of a curve right through here. The lid down a little bit more. Create that little cove on top of the lid. That looks pretty good. So even a little bit of sandpaper, this kind of wood would clean that right up. So just come in here and flatten this. Now, I'm not going to open this up and make it into a box. We're just playing with shapes right now. And I'm going to show you a trick to make this completely neutral. First, I'm just going to grab me a real quick sand over here real quick, just to get rid of any sharp tool marks we might have created. This is almost like a pagoda type of shape. And we don't want to sand up here because it's going to get rid of that crispness of the detail. So all right, so we got a nice shape there. A little bit of tool mark there, but it's not going to show up once I show you guys what I'm going to do next here. All right, I'll reach down here in my handy little spray finishes. It's probably in my cupboard, I would think. Yeah, I believe so. Doing is I'm looking for there it is, my black spray paint. And of course, I'm going to cover the way bed, the way beds here. And I'm going to lay some paper towels across my chuck and stuff, so this any overspray, it's not going to get on my chuck here. So I'm going to grab me my fancy board here that you guys have probably seen a few times, maybe. That's my. So you can see I've used it a lot. I'm going to turn it over. You guys can see that a little bit better. Should paint this thing black while I'm at it. Now you guys can see things when they're light colored. Grab some paper towels. Just gonna lay them across. Doesn't need to be anything fancy. There we go. Maybe grab some tape there. Just make sure it's nice and covered up here. Don't need any overspray getting on my equipment here. So this if you're doing this in your shop, that's a good idea to cover everything up. All right, lid. I hate some of these can lids. They don't want to come off. There we go. So what this does, it neutralizes it. It gets rid of all the grain and everything that can distract from the design. So to put it, you don't want the grain to take away from that at this point. We just want to look at the design, and you'll see a difference once I paint it black here. Get this going here. I don't have them with me in my shop right now. They're in storage, but I got a whole bunch of these I used to keep on a shelf in my shop. So if there's somebody wanting a box or something, and they visited my shop, they could just pick out the design without looking at the grain of the wood. So that way it's the design that drew them to the piece or what it looks like, instead of the wood itself. So as you can see, it's I need to open my shop door real quick. Fumes are getting to me just a little. So I'm going to open it part way up. There we go. Some of that air out. So we'll take the paper towels off and the tape off, and you guys will see what I'm talking about as far as the. Now you can really see the shape there. And if you put that next to, this is the same kind of wood it was, grain. Now you can see how neutral it became. And you're just looking at the design itself. For a box like this, you can make the bottom one type of wood and use a contrasting wood for the. Still a little wet, no. You could use contrasting wood, light or dark on the bottom, and vice versa, light or dark on the top. You can see how different that made that piece look when I painted it. So that's a good tip. I learned that from Richard Raffin many, many years ago. This is how he designs his boxes. All right, let's move on to making you can do an offset box if you like. I'm just trying to pick out a good blank to use. I think this one's going to work well. This is a piece of, I don't know, looks like maple, but it's got see a bug hole in it. That's what caused the streaks. A little beetle got in there, and they did their business, and they got out, and causes a fungus to grow in there. That's how ambrosia maple's made too. So the first thing we want to do is we want to mark the top of this with some calipers. Pencil calipers, not your. All right, so where's my smaller ones? I got my big ones there. Must be in my drawer here. There they are. All right, got my pencil here. I'm gonna put this in here. It's not as difficult as it sounds making a three-sided box. You just want to balance that out where that matches the pin. Kitty cat came into my shop just now. Doesn't belong to me. We want to find the center here. Need to adjust. I'm going to start out with a different piece of wood. This is it. Probably work. Might. So I got already a center hole there punched in. And you want to have the tenon on there already when you do this measurement here. So that's about 1/3 and 2/3, which is what you're looking for before you start this piece for the tenon size. And we're just going to make a small mark right there, so you guys can see that. So the next, to make this in the thirds, you want to mark it in the thirds. You want to bring the point to that mark you made. Make sure it's lined up with the center. Use your pencil. And you're just going to scribe a mark here, across this way. And then you're going to want to grab a ruler. Should have a little more pencil somewhere. You are. And from that line and the straight line there, I'm going to find that dot where the compass went in. This place it marked right. So we're just going to highlight these a little bit better so I can see them. And you're going to want to find that centerpiece here, that center line. Bring it all the way to the edge of the piece. I'll put it in my chuck here. And I'll use my tool rest to mark a line across there instead of a ruler. It's a little easier. You just want to lock your spindle. I'm just going to raise up the tool rest to match that line. Take it straight across, just like that. And you can see that straight line right there. So we're going to grab that pencil again. Flip it over. Straight lines towards the center there. We're going to grab that ruler and make a straight line all the way across. Hold it the best you can. Now just kind of eyeball it there if it's a little off. And you're going to grab that same pencil compass. You're going to put that spot. So it should be the same size tenon on both ends, so it's centered up. Go there, and we're going to go there. We've got, now it's marked into thirds on both ends. So you want to label them. 1, 2, here's 3. Now this is the important part. When you flip it over, turn it upside down, flip it this way, and mark it the same way. So you want to match these 3 up. There's the 3, and right across from it's 3. You got the 1 and the 1, and the 2 and the 2. So what we need to do now is we're going to take the chuck off and put a live center or a drive center in the headstock here. Yeah, this is like a step center here. And we're going to bring up my tail center. It has a point still in it. So we just want to eyeball this and bring that point in just a little bit. There we go. This is just so the point of the drive centers will seat right. Now for the tenons, you got to make sure they're the same size. That's very important when it comes to this, because you use the tenon as a measuring tool while you're turning. It allows you to check and see how deep you're going. That way all the sides come out even. So we got holes, little punched holes there for the points on both ends. So to make the twist for drive 1 or the headstock, you want to put it for number 1. Put that in the point there. And you're going to be offset turning. So this thing's going to be flipping around a little bit. So you don't want to extend your tailstock out any more than you have to. Which mine is right now. There we go. And you want to find number 2. Pull this back a little bit. Find the hole for number 2. Get in the hole here. There we go. Make sure your pull rest is good and tight. As you can see, it's going to be flipping around quite a bit. So you want to make sure when you start this up, your lathe is on its lowest setting before you speed it up. And I can do all the turning with my small roughing gouge, which are great for these. Next thing you want to do is make sure you have your tool rest set height, your height set right, and everything's locked down, and it's not going to turn on you. And when this spins, it's not going to crash into the piece of wood. You can see it can do that if you're not careful. But we are at the right height, middle, I think, yeah. So I'm just going to grab me my little 3/4 inch roughing gouge. I need to hold it where it's going to be on center, so I need to lower the tool rest just a hair. It's adjustable as we go too. Yeah, that's good. You can see this flipping around like crazy here. I'm going to switch to a different camera. You guys look down in the corner there, you guys can see that flopping around. You'll be able to see the tool working at the same time. There we go. Now you guys got a good view of that down in the bottom corner and overhead. So I got my lathe turned off, speed's all the way down, and you can imagine what this is going to be like once it gets going. The faster you turn this, better off you're going to be. And I'm just going to double check on the tightness of everything on the tailstock, because you do not want one of these coming out. Let's crank it down until it feels really tight. Lock your tailstock. And now we're ready to go. Stand out of the line of fire when you speed it up, just in case. See, it's not vibrating really bad, which is a good sign. That means I've got both of those points equalized as far as measurement goes. Otherwise, it'd be bouncing around a little bit more than this. Okay, that's a little too fast. I can hear it. All right, so we're just going to, I'm looking at the horizon up here. That's where I'm going to watch. And I can see the tenons on both sides, and I want to cut down to those tenons. So, plus it's going to have a slight cove in the center, so we're just going to work our way in. And I'm watching the horizon because I can see how the wood's just disappearing off the piece. Take a little bit more off here. Too much of a cove on the end. Just a slight adjustment. You gotta just take it easy with as far as how fast you take the wood off. You're cutting a lot of air. Plus this wood will come off of this piece faster than you think. And you can see how it's already forming the twist. What I want to do is I want to cut it down to where this area is just right where that tenon meets it on both sides, and right here. And we are pretty close, and we're pretty even on both sides. And you can see that curve, that nice twist. Now, for design's sake, you could just leave it like that and just have one nice curve in a box and leave the rest of it straight. That would make an interesting box too. But let's finish this one up as we started it. So we're gonna just, it's not gonna take much more of it cutting down here. You want to make sure you try to cut it as smooth as possible too, because it's impossible to sand this with the piece running on the lathe. You have to hand sand it. So the smoother the cut you got, the less sanding you have to do. And it doesn't hurt to stop and check, see where progress. So this side's just barely touching it. So I'm just gonna take one more pass on this end, and probably two on this end. Watch your fingers. Don't have them on your tool rest when you start these things up. Down to the middle. Yeah, I can still see a line where that tenon is, so I'm gonna, like I said, just two more passes on this side. Down to the center. Have a look, see, and see, okay, see, you should actually, with it running, if you look at the horizon in the shadow, you can actually see dips and bumps in the cut. So I see one right here that needs to be fixed up. That's past the, after the tenon, so we're not going to be affecting that. And right in the center here, I saw a bit of a bump, but I don't see any dips in it, which is good. So we are just kissing that side and right there. So we're at right where we need to be. So the next thing you want to do is you want to take this out of your, you need to reposition it. So we need to find number 2. We just did number 1. So we're going to go to number 2. And we need to find number 3. There we go. Now we got it. We just crank this down really good and tight like we did last time. All right, so same thing. Turn on the lathe. All right, make sure everything's locked. You're good to go. Just give it a spin before you turn on the lathe. Make sure the tool rest isn't going to hit it. Stand out of the line of fire. You never know. Get it up to about the same speed it was working earlier. There we are. So I can see the same thing here. You guys can see some of that. The framing of my video camera is trying to keep up. So I don't know. I'm gonna swing this other camera around, see what it looks like for you guys. And I'm gonna switch it over. Ah, look at that. That's crazy. Slow motion. But that's not a very good look. I mean, it's going to be hard for you guys to see what I'm cutting with that. So we'll go back to the other way. So we're just going to start at the edge here like we did before. I started really fast. I shouldn't have started it that hard. You got to remember we were cutting partially air. Still getting some really nice shavings off of that, as you can see. Just got a little bit of a bump there. So the other way. Feels like it's not running as fast. The cut's not as smooth. There we go. That might be a little bit better. Oh, getting some vibration there. You gotta turn it down. And back the other way. Now it's time to stop and see how our progress is going. That one's number 1. Wow, we're almost there already on both of them there. This is where it gets kind of confusing. So I need to take it a little bit more down in the middle because it's got a flat right there. So we got that much more to go. Now this side, it's already there, so I don't want to cut any more off of that part of that end. But we do need to take off some here. That'll probably get rid of that flat. And I see a bump on this side, so I'm just gonna start inward, not towards the tenon. Now as long as the the cuts match up on the tenons, it's fine. You just want them to look the same. The tenons are just a guide. You can go a little bit deeper, but as long as both sides are the equal depth, it's fine. We still got a flat right there, so we got a little bit more to go. Get rid of that. We need to make a little bit more cuts here too, get it down to the tenon. We need to make that cove that I'm creating here a little bit deeper. We're just going to come in about in the middle of this other side here and go down and match that up. Okay, that flat is gone. Oh, no, it's still there. It's shrinking though. So we are down pretty much equal on both sides there as far as the tenons go. Take just a hair more off of this side to equal it out. Well, just a light cut is all it's going to take. So I'm just going to make that cove a little bit deeper in here, and it's going to get rid of that flat spot. Nice smooth curve going in towards the center. A little bit back and forth here. Now, if you guys got any questions or want to tell a joke or anything, just mute your mics. It's really quiet. Yeah. Need to go back to this screen here. There we go. Wow, you guys didn't get the video link. That's weird. I'll have to resend it. Sorry about that. I don't know what happened. I'll double check the email address list to make sure you guys are on it. Now the reason for this cove is it makes the lines line up. All right, so we got rid of both of those. The flat's gone. That's what we were looking for. Tenons all touch. No more flat. So we can twist it one more time, and I'll try to go a little bit faster with it this time. So now what we need to do, we gotta listen. This is the odd part. So what we need to do is turn this to number 3 at the headstock and number 1 on the tailstock. I know it sounds like 1 to 3, but that's how they all line up here. That little hole. There we go. That one went in easier than the last one. Want to make sure these are good and tight, and your tailstock locks down really well on your bedways of your lathe when you do things like this. We just got one more to do. Everything else is the same. You shouldn't have to move anything. All right, so turn it down. So you never know. If you turn it at the same speed as, but because of this is offset, you really don't want to make sure that's locked, tailstock's locked. You don't want to start this up at a top speed and just have it pop out. That's what the danger part of that is. So now I'm already seeing a cove from the other cuts, but I can see the tenons on both sides, and that's what I'm aiming for here. Just want to make sure I am cutting at the right spot here. Should be cutting right. Yep. So I should be cutting all right. It doesn't hurt to check and make sure you're cutting in the right spot on a piece like this. Yeah, come back to this end here. You can hear that air popping in there. As you get further down, the smoother the cut will go. And we're going to check to see how far we've come. We're almost done there. See, it's the closest part of the piece that's coming through the tool rest is where you're cutting on both ends. So we're almost done there. And we've got a little bit to go on this side. So take care of that. Kind of even it all out. And by the shadow there, it looks like I'm there. So just a couple of cuts on this end and it should do it. Still got a little bit of a flat right there, so we need to make that cove a little bit deeper right in the middle. Don't want to come to the ends because we are at the tenon. Oh, this one is a little bit further. This one's fine. This one needs to be cut down just a little bit more. Match up the other side. It helps to have something dark on the other side of your lathe so you can see this shadow forming when you turn on a piece like this when you're doing offset work. We got rid of the flat's gone. So we are there, tenon, 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 it's all cut down. So we have a twist. We've got a twisted blank now. Any questions so far on that? see the twist in there now. Now we need to decide which side do we want for the top. So I'm just looking at how the grain runs. I don't like it going up that direction from the bottoms. Yeah. Make this the bottom part is going into the chuck. Make sure it seats nice and tight. The points there are gonna rest on the chuck, so you don't want to put those right there. You want to twist it, make sure those are centered somewhat in the jaws. See, it's right there, so it can come a little looser. I'll make sure those are, there we go. We got that one's there, that one, that one. Now we can tighten it down. You don't want any of those points in that gap in the jaws, or you're gonna need to tap like chuck into place here. I think the threads are getting old on this insert. It's the only chuck that does this to me, and it kind of, sometimes if I don't do that, it'll wobble. So we can either make this cut the top off here, which I probably will anyway, because it is kind of a tall piece. I'm just gonna kind of cut it right here in the middle. I can get 2 boxes out of this actually, if I do that. So I'm gonna grab in my parting tool, turn down the lathe again. So now we're running true. And I'm just gonna eyeball it here. Is this gonna give me 2 boxes? Let me grab that other one here. See, it'll give me 2 twisted boxes, so that'll be nice. Very close. I'm gonna go off and make this one side a little taller, and now have a shorty twisted box to go with it. And we need to make a little curve there so your parting tool doesn't get bound up in the middle. All right, so we are at a point, a very small point in the middle there. Just give it a twist. We're all set. So I'm going to clean up the face of this, and I need sandpaper to clean that up. I'm going to grab me my spindle gouge and take it across the face of this real quick. Like clean up those edges that parting tool got rid of there. Okay, we are way too high on the tool rest now, so I need to lower it. Make sure we're on the middle. It's a tad shorter. We'll move some tools off the lathe bed. Don't like those flopping around there. All right, 90 degrees. Remember, you're cutting air when you start this cut, so till you get a nice groove going and solid wood, you'll feel it. My tool rest is still a little too high for the cut. That's why it's vibrating like that. Still left a little bit of a spiral in it. I'm going to do that pass one more time. Kind of textured the wood. There we go. That's better. That little notch in the middle. All right. That's better. All this is going to be taken out. most of it with a Forstner bit. So I'm going to get that ready to go. Check to see the size of them. So we can go a bit bigger on the Forstner bit. Saves time on hollowing. You take that one bit out and find one that, a larger one here. You see all my markings on these things for different depths. So I've got a bunch of Forstners here. Let's see. I don't want to go too big because then it's not going to leave me any way to clean up the inside. So I'm just probably going to go with this one right here is good. That way you can take your spindle gouge and clean it up some. So then we got to measure how deep we want to go with the drill bit. Markies here. All right, so we got a ruler here. Let's see how deep we are. How deep I want to go. Still got that tenon. About 2 inches. That's about right. Now remember that point. You want to be able to get rid of that point in the bottom of the piece. So I'm just going to go a little shy of that and make it 1 3/4. Include that point in your measurement there. You can use gouges or a scraper to get rid of that. So we want to go that deep. Make sure your lathe is turned down before you start drilling. Next thing I need to do, if I almost forgot, make a little divot in the center with a parting tool. You can also use a skew chisel or any type of point tool here. And you just want to put a little hole right there for the point of the Forstner bit to find its center. That way it doesn't go wandering off and make a odd-block looking hole. Just going to bring this up as close as we can before we start cutting. Make sure your tailstock is retracted as far as it can. And back it out a couple times. Clean out those shavings a little bit. And I'm going to retract the tool rest a little bit more. And just slide the tailstock in there just like this very slowly until it bottoms out. And we're at that mark. Slide this out here, slow. You don't want it to get jammed in there. All kinds of things can cause it to jam up. So I'm taking my drill bit out of here. I don't need it now. Last thing I need is my elbow running into it. All right. And we got that out of the tailstock. Saves elbows. So I'm just going to grab me a spindle gouge and do some back cutting like I showed last week. You guys are going to get to see that again. So it's just a back cut, 45 degrees to start the cut. Just off the center of the tip of the tool to your on the left side, just like last week. And just do some pull cuts to bring it out. These are just cleanup cuts. And we're going to stop there because we don't want to go all the way to the ends here. So we got a little ways to go yet. But we still need to make a shelf here for that insert. insert lid. Yeah, that looks pretty good. So now I'm just going to grab me a, because there is that point from that drill bit in the bottom. I'll grab me my square-ended, or use my round one, carbide tool here. Make sure it's on straight. You need to use these level. I'm just going to use this on the bottom. Do some back and forth cuts. Sort of rounds over the bottom, plus it gets rid of that point or that hole that the Forstner bit left in there. That's kind of an ugly sight when you look in a box. Sounds like it's gone now by the sounds of the cut. We'll take a peek inside. Yep, it's gone. So I need to round over just that one part between the sidewall and the bottom. Oop. Hold on to this tool kind of tight because there's a sharp corner in there right now. There we go. Got rid of that. So next thing we want to do is create a shelf. Using a parting tool for the inset lid to fit into. Doesn't have to be a big shelf, but we're just going to bring the tool in just about half a cut. Just want to go in deep enough where you know that lid's not going to keep flopping around too much. Make sure it's good and flat. And we stop and check to see how deep we went. It's a little bit deeper. Now at this point I would sand the inside, but not with my fingers. I have a little calipers things here. Let me grab those and show you what I'm talking about. I'll show you how I sand the inside of boxes real quick. Grab me a small piece of sandpaper here. So, these are my little surgery calipers. I will just fold up this piece. So this with a little bit of a little hangover there. And you're going to want to grab these tools upside down. And then when you got that in there, you can just, that is a little too long. This box is smaller than I normally make, so just fold that down a little further down. And we'll just stick that in there with the lathe running and we're good to go. We need to turn it down. This is better than sticking your fingers in there. In the piece there, you kind of roll the tool over. You can see that. See how the paper's in there running. And it makes really quick work of sanding the inside of a box. You see, it's really nice. Came out pretty smooth in there. So we want to finish the bottom. Instead of making a jam chuck, what I'm going to do, I'm going to use my pin jobs like I talked about last week. And then I can just sand out those little lines that might make in there. So this is what I talked about doing last week. I just slide this over the pin jaws, snug it up, not too tight, you don't want to crack the wood. You can finish the bottom this way. It's not sitting completely tight. Be sure it's good and tight against the face of the jaws. I'm also going to bring up my tail center just for added security and support. Not a really tight crank down on it, just enough to keep it from vibrating too much and maybe sliding off the chuck. Just find that center hole we had earlier. Snug it up a little bit there. There we go. Then we're going to take this tenon off the bottom. We've got right there. Oh, that's really reflecting the light. Need to get rid of that tenon there. So I'm back to the spindle gouge. Snug your tool rest up there. You can raise it up just a little bit. There we go. Turn it up. And we're just going to make cuts towards the... All right, this tool's getting a little dull, so I'm going to grab me another spindle gouge. It's just the overhang of the tool vibrating like that. We want to get as much as we can off before we take the tailstock back away. Just gonna pare this down as much as you can. These are just kind of clean up cuts real quick. This by no means is finishing the bottom. I'm just needed that tailstock support for that part. And we can just kind of get the parting tool and slice that off and clean up that cut. There we go. Now we're going to make a bottom on it. We're going to do a slice across the top with the spindle gouge here, across the bottom here. For a cleanup cut. I'm just going to make a concave type of thing. You got to remember where that bottom is. I think I might have hit the sides a little too much, chopped off the corners. Let me see here. It's not too bad. It's sandable. So I'm just going to do a pull cut back and clean up that sharp edge. I don't want to force the tool into those corners because it'll chop it up. So you want to do it's like a slicing cut, shear scrape. I'm making it concave here too. And we'll stop and see where we're at. We got little ridges right there on the corners, so we need to start to cut back here. Light cuts. You can hear that. That's cutting air more than cutting wood. That's a little bit better, almost. Just real easy cuts here. Start there and just bring it on all the way out. I lost the corners. Clean up. I lost 2 corners. A little sandpaper, hand sanding, and I'll clean those up. So I'm going to take my parting tool now, and I'm just going to get rid of this part here. In fact, go a little bit deeper. I'm going to add a little decoration to the bottom. It's always a nice thing to do. People always tend to turn things over and look at them, like boxes and bowls and stuff. So you want to make sure that if you can, make sure it looks, interesting. A lot of grooves this time. I'm trying to use my parting tool as a kind of a screw, as a skew, like twisting it about 45 degrees. There's a groove right there that kind of showed up and I'm trying to get rid of. There we go. Sandpaper will take care of the rest of that. To make that a little bit bigger, so I'm just going to come in from the outside here, make that a little bit of a bigger opening on the bottom. Always check, you don't want to go so far where you don't have a foot anymore. That's good. I'm just going to grab some 180 real quick and clean up the bottom. I'm trying to clean up those edges that blew out, those corners a little bit, the lathe running. So instead of using the spiral tool this week, I'm going to use a Wagner texturing tool. Put a design in the bottom. Yeah, just a little touch up there with some sandpaper, and I'll get rid of those little jagged edges on the corners. You guys don't want to watch me sand all day, so. All right, so let me grab that Wagner tool. Which size should I use? Would that one work? It's a little too big. But I got 2 sizes, right? There we go. That'll work. Gotta turn these down. Lathe. Run it about 400. You need to bring the tool rest back a little bit so the wheel doesn't hit it. Now this doesn't cut the wood. These actually leave an impression in the wood. They're just knurling wheels that metalworkers use. And somebody got the bright idea to turn them into texturing tools for woodworkers. So I'm just going back and forth just a little bit, see what kind of pattern we get. Got to always leave it in there a little longer than you think it needs. Because it can only go so deep. So I'm not sure if you guys can see that. Oh, man, why is this so bright? A lot of glare on this wood. Let me see if I can switch. There we go. There we go. You guys can see that pattern? It's all done with just this knurling tool, just putting it in and just slightly going back and forth like this. Taking your time and pushing it in. You got to push in to get that pattern because it just leaves an impression in the wood. Trying to get that light out of there. So I'm going to grab me my elf tool. and do my best to make a nice little rosette in the middle. In this part right here. Got to get it rolling or it's not going to do its job. Just got to hold it there. Don't want to move it around too much. Get that rosette flower looking thing. Just let it cut into the wood. This does cut the wood because it's a carbide cutter on the tip here. We'll see how that rosette came out here. Oh, very nice. You guys can try to create a shadow. A lot of glare for this. It's created a nice little pattern there. So I'm just going to do something that let you guys. Oh, should have got this out earlier. I'm going to get some black embellishing paste wax. I'm going to put that right in the center there. And it's going to make that design pop like you wouldn't believe. Some people think, ooh, black? Oh, black is fine. It's classy looking. It's better than purples and blues. And depending on the design you're trying to make on a box. For this, we just wipe it on, get it into all those nice grooves in there, just rub it in really well. Where the pattern is, don't worry about the stuff coming off. We're going to take care of that. Turn on the lathe, wipe all this excess away. So make sure you get it all down into that pattern. That's good. And now we need to get some of that wax off my fingers, or I'll spread it all over the piece. I don't want that. Fresh paper towel. You need to fold it up the quarters here. I'm just going to turn on the lathe and speed it up some. We'll start removing that wax, excess wax. You got to constantly move the paper towel, otherwise you're just going to be keep reapplying the wax. You can see it's coming off a little bit, and a little bit, and a little bit. I want to get it off of the corners out of there. There's a whole bunch in that corner. So you just want to keep turning your paper towel. Till the paper towel comes off clean. So it's getting cleaner. So we still got a little bit in that corner here, so we just want to get rid of that. A little bit here. And keep your hands away from the sides of that piece because it is jagged from the twist. It'll be a knuckle buster. So that's looking good. So we'll just take some more swipes this way. And one more. Now this wax dries, so you don't actually have to put a finish over it. You can if you want, but it's not necessary. So there we go. It's coming off clean. Now let's take a look. See, this is going to really show off the pattern here. Maybe took a little too much wax off. Yeah. You guys can see it a little bit better. I'm going to reapply it one more time. I think I pushed the envelope as far as how much wax to take off. So. And I'm going to apply it to the rest of the bottom too when I get to that point. It's because this is a bottom and the way I've got it mounted, I could just, I need to work on the bottom some more before I finish it and all that. Just put it back on the pin jaws. So that almost goes into it. Let me cut that part off. Measure with calipers. Calipers. Where are they? Put them back in the drawer, I'm sure. So we need to measure that inset. There. Want it a little loose. You don't want them tight. That's good. Otherwise, the wood expands and cause you some problems. Okay, so let's barely have to take anything off except for this part here. Just gonna grab me my spindle gouge, turn this up, cut this off. Now, if you wanted, you could, I'm coming out to the edge too much there. You could actually dress up the inside with putting textures. Wow, I wonder what's right. There is something right there. So I'm just gonna get rid of that. Something in the grain was making my tool grab. I'm not going to mess with putting the texture for it on the insert today. We just did it on the bottom. All right, so I'm going to touch that with sandpaper real quick. Make it look nice. Any slight tool marks that might have been left behind. Looks pretty good for a demo piece. All right. So I barely got to touch this with a parting tool to get the right size. Parting tool is right here. Grab the box bottom. Just make sure it fits properly. Lower the tool rest down so high for parting tool. Just gentle, easy cuts. No, it's going to take it easy here. It's not going to take much to get it into that little insert there. All right. Make that part a little too big, but that's all right. It's just going to take a touch. Wow. That's probably what I needed right there. That first cut is too much. White.
Could you switch the overhead on that camera?
Sure. Just want to.
Thank you.
Yep. I'll sand this all up later, I guess. That did not come out the right size. Barely a touch. This is where it comes down to nuts and bolts as far as getting things to fit. All right, so that fits snugly. So just need to get this down even there. Give it just a little kiss there to loosen it up just a little bit. See, that's too tight. Just need to. We don't want this kind of lid to be too tight, but we don't want it flopping around either. There we go. Got it. So I'm just going to take this down and cut it off. I'm going to reverse it into the chucks. It fits right down in there. So got a little bit of a pop, not bad. You can probably hear that. I can clean that up when I reverse it a little bit. I can also sand the inside, just a little bit of sandpaper in that groove we cut in the box, and that probably take care of that too. So what we want to do is just bring this up just a little bit, just to where it's just grabbing. It's running pretty true there the first time. Sometimes you gotta adjust it a little bit here and there. So what we want to do now is just gonna clean this up. You need to take a bunch of this away. And be careful with the jaws here. Let's see what kind of cut we got there. Needs a little bit of cleanup here. So nice little back shear cut here. That's a nice cut there. You can see the shavings coming off. And it does have a little lip there, so I want to get rid of that. Kind of round that over a little bit. Looks pretty good, so stop there. Don't go too much further. I want to drill a small hole in it for finial. So I need to get my drill bit like that. I need to get my drill chuck out. You don't want to use a really small hole because you don't want that finial breaking off. You can make that divot with the parting tool. Almost forgot. And we're only going to go part way in. We don't need to go, we don't want to go all the way through the lid. Need to turn down the speed.
So is that like a 3/8 drill bit?
Yeah, that's 3/8. And it's going to be kind of a shallow hole. We don't want to go all the way through. And that should do it. We didn't go all the way through, but it's deep enough to hold a tenon. out of there, and we'll clean up those little ridges. Sandpaper gets rid of those really quick. You see, it just fits right down in that. Where am I? So just a little bit proud, but that's fine. It makes a little detail on the box. I'm going to show you guys real quick. I'll make a walnut finial. It's interesting making all these different kinds of boxes. Let me grip my chuck with the pin jaws again. At least I don't have to. I used to have to stop and change jaws when I wanted to do that, but I got wise and bought a couple extra chucks. I don't have to do that anymore. That was years and years ago, though. Like, what do I need more than one chuck for? So we're just gonna screw this in there. I'm gonna spin, see how true it's running. That's pretty good. We'll cut most of that away anyway. Just crank it down. All right. There's a tool rest. The first thing we need to do is turn this thing around. I'm going to grab me my smaller tool rest. Some kind of overhangs everything. That's better. This gives more support underneath the tool rest, having the post right there. A little bit closer. There we go. That's good. Centered. Yep. I'm going to grab me my 3/4 inch roughing gouge, turn this round. Drop that tool rest some. There we go. Turn these pretty quick at a high speed. Tell by the cut when you're down to solid wood. Do some pilling cuts to get it down that way. See where we're at. Takes quick work of that. So I'm just going to bring this, do a general shape of it. There's some of that. We got a nice point there. We need to take some of this down because it's too big. So we grab our detail gouges here. All right. So I'm going to grab me my very small detail gouge here. I'm going to lower the tool rest even more for this one cut. So I'm just going to clean up the corner or the end here. So kind of a rounded point. You don't want real sharp because they do break off. So we're going to add a detail here by putting the tool straight up and down. And once you hear it start cutting, you want to give it a twist and turn it to 90 degrees while pushing in, but not all the way in. And then we can just kind of finish up that corner there, make it look nice, that little point. Give it like a slight cove going up to the top there. All right, so now I'm going to grab me a slightly bigger detail gouge. There you are. What I want to do is just take it can't go really thin with this because people are going to use this finial to lift that lid off. Otherwise, I would make it really thin right through here. Yeah, it's got a little bit of tear out there, so I'm just going to adjust that. And this is the time where you would grab some really light sandpaper here, high grit, just kind of get rid of any tool marks. When making finials, sandpaper is your friend, I'll tell you. It really helps with getting the details just right. I'm just going to keep working my way down this way. And with this tool, I'm going to do the same kind of cut. I'm just going to start it straight up, do a twist. There we go. I'm going to make a cove after that, just by going back and forth real quick with the tip of the tool. And then we're going to do a nice cleanup thing here. Clean this up. Oh, should have done that first. Do a cleanup cut right through here. Now I want to do that cut. Oh, I wasn't holding the tool at 90 degrees like I should have been. And I'm going to clean up this little detail here. Do a back cut. So I need to pull that finial out just a little bit to create the tenon. I'm going to sand it first. So I'm going to pull out just a little bit. Got lots of room to play with here. I like to have it as far in as I can for making the finial for extra support. Just line up. It's not quite true. It's not quite true. Not going to sit on the box straight. There we go. The tenon would be crooked if it's not running true. Come on. These chucks are getting well used and old. There we go. Make sure it's good and tight. Okay, grab that 3/4 inch roughing gouge, do some peel cuts here to get this part round again. All right, so now I need to grab me my small, very small parting tools. So you can see this is a very, very, very small one. It's got I grind a slant on it so I can do undercuts on this part. So if I'm doing the undercut, when I get to the bottom of the tenon that I need to make, this will be straight. Once I start making this, you guys will understand that a little bit more. But, okay, so I'm just going to clean this up a little bit. This is the part that's going to touch the top of the box. I'm going to undercut this. I'm going to stop there. Grab me my other parting tool, go down. So I need to measure this to match the hole in the lid, 3/8 inch. Come on out of there. Yeah. I'm just gonna grab my veneer calipers here just to make sure it's the right size. Go. Tighten that down. I don't think we're quite there yet. Almost, though. So I'm going to start doing a measuring cut towards the back. That way, if I get this wrong, I've got all this other extra wood to play with to get it right. Take a little bit more off. Uh-oh. Oh, we're right on it. All right. Helps when you got good eyesight sometimes. And we're going to undercut here so it fits nice and flush on top of the lid. Grab those calipers and just make sure it's all the way across. All right, so now we can part this off. Oh, I'll grab that sandpaper one more time real quick. Just buff this part up. There we go. So we want to part this off. I'm going to grab me my thin parting tool to do this instead of that little one. Safer. Remember, it's a shallow hole, so you gotta leave. Can't cut way back there, and you'll end up having to sand all that or carve it all off. Okay. So it's just got that little divot right there, so we can just sand that away. Once it's flat in the hole. All right. So we got all the parts done. We got the lid, we got the bottom, we got the finial. It fits nice and snug. You just slide that right in there. You got a twisted box. Just like that. Well, not just like that, but so that's a great design for a box. It takes a little imagination to get them done, but you follow the correct steps and you can make almost anything into a box. Any design you want. So remember this one? This is what we started with. It's like a pagoda, but you can make them any style, and you just put these on a shelf and line them up on a shelf with a white background. And you'll be surprised the variant, even if you made a bunch of these, you'll see various differences in how you turned it. None of them are going to be exactly the same. So, any questions? Yeah, thanks, Mike.
If somebody doesn't have a set of golden mean calipers, they want to figure out the answer. If you divide 1.62 into the overall height of your box, it will give you the long leg number.
Yep. If I don't have the jig I have for setting that up, I just usually go thirds because it's just a little bit off. of a third. And as far as woodworking goes, metalworking, it might show up a little bit more. Woodworking, you're not going to miss a whole lot if it's not exactly. I've always measured with my calipers, and they never come out when they're done that way. Close, but not quite. So.
Did you find those twisted candlestick holders?
Oh, let me see if oh, there's one right in front of me. I made a pair of these. Boy, it's dusty after being in my wood shop all this time. Yeah. It's got a twist all the way down its length. It's not
now,
glued
is that
into
two
the stand.
pieces or one? Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm spinning it in this because I never glue them in. But yeah, you can do that twist all the way down like something like this. This, what is it, 12 inches or something? How long is this one? Yeah. This one's 11 inches. I made one that's a little taller than this as a pair. So the other one's probably like 13 or 14. Now, I've seen
beautiful
people,
design.
Huh?
Great design.
Yeah, I got a lot of compliments for it, thankfully. It took some doing. I know some other people that make the twisted boxes, but when I showed them my twisted candlesticks, they're like, "Oh my goodness!" You imagine that thing, Imagine this on the lathe spinning like all cattywalker, making sure that you get the cuts right. It's like the box, except it's just longer cuts, gentler cuts.
What kind of wood is that?
Oh, on the candlestick? Yeah,
Yes.
That's maple.
Maple.
And then the bottom is English walnut, if I remember right. Thank you, Ron. Appreciate you guys coming in. Thank you, Mike. I think my injury
Thank you.
Yeah. Hopefully I'll see you guys pretty soon in one of my other demos, or if you're going to be at the AEW Symposium, look me up. I'm doing 3 classes there this year. So there'll be let me show you a piece that I should show you guys something before you guys go running off. I'm going to show how I do my deep texturing. I'm going to make a platter like this, or very similar. See the design in it, the texturing there. And then I'm going to do something similar. This is just a sample piece because I've been practicing, and I burned the texture so I could see it better. It's an off-center bowl with the same kind of texturing technique.
Scott, again, thank you. Great demo.
All right, thank you. I really appreciate you guys supporting me. I know I don't get a lot of people in here, but that doesn't bother me. I do it for 2 people. I've done it for 1 person before, so.
Well, thank you. I enjoyed it. I picked up a lot today.
Oh, I'm glad you learned some things. That's my main goal, to get people to think outside the box, the normal bowl making and things. Kind of reach out and try something new. That's my motto.
Thank you very much.
So yeah, you're welcome. So I'm gonna say sayonara for the night or afternoon, or I'm not sure where you are in the country or anything. So it's either dinner time, lunchtime, or something. So all right, we'll see you all later. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.